The transport ship Galactic Unity hummed through the void of space, carrying soldiers from 12 different species toward the contested planet of Kepler 442b. In the cargo bay, warriors prepare their weapons and check their armor. The air buzzed with nervous energy and the clicking sounds of various alien languages. Marcus Chun sat alone in the corner, methodically cleaning his rifle. The weapon looked ancient compared to the plasma cannons and energy rifles surrounding him. It was a modified Barrett M107, upgraded with advanced targeting systems and armor-piercing rounds designed for alien physiology. To the other soldiers, it seemed like a museum piece. "Look at the human," chittered Zextar, a mantis-like Klaxon warrior whose 4 arms bristled with modern weapons, still using projectile weapons from his Stone Age. The comment drew laughter from nearby troops. A hulking Gorvok named Thrumka stomped over, his massive frame casting a shadow over Marcus. Standing nearly 9 feet tall with skin like granite, the Gorvok was considered one of the galaxy's finest marksmen with his plasma rifle. "Human," Thrumka rumbled in accented galactic standard, "why do you carry that primitive stick? Are your people too poor for real weapons?" Marcus looked up calmly, his weathered face showing no emotion. At 42, he was older than most soldiers on the ship, his brown hair streaked with gray. Scars on his hands told stories of countless battles. "It works," he said simply, returning to his cleaning. The Gorvok laughed, a sound like boulders grinding together. "Works? My plasma rifle can punch through a meter of steel at 5 kilometers. What can your little bullet do?" "Depends on where I put it," Marcus replied, inserting a fresh magazine into his rifle with practiced ease. This drew more laughter from the assembled aliens. A serpentine Sithrak named Veshale slithered closer, her scaled body gleaming under the ship's lights. "Humans always think they're special," she hissed. "But you're new to galactic warfare, yes? How many confirmed kills do you have, primitive one?" Marcus secured his rifle and looked around at the expectant faces. Some showed genuine curiosity, others barely concealed contempt. Humans had only joined the Galactic Defense Coalition 6 months ago, and many species still saw them as backwards newcomers. 237, Marcus said quietly. The laughter died down somewhat. Zextar's compound eyes focused on a human. "In galactic service?" "Total," Marcus clarified. 14 years of service. Various conflicts. Krumka snorted. "Impressive for a primitive, but this is real war, human. The Zerif Empire has been conquering worlds for centuries. Their soldiers are bred for combat, enhanced with cybernetics, armed with weapons that can level cities. Your little rifle won't save you when a Zerif destroyer comes charging." The other soldiers nodded in agreement. The Zerif were the Coalition's most dangerous enemy, a race of 12-foot-tall reptilian warriors whose empire had consumed dozens of worlds. Their technology was advanced, their tactics ruthless, and their soldiers seemed to feel no fear or pain. "We'll see," Marcus said, settling back into his corner. Captain Yithnor, a crystalline being whose body reflected light in rainbow patterns, entered the cargo bay. The conversations died as soldiers snapped to attention. "We drop in 30 minutes, the captain announced, his voice resonating like wind chimes. "Intelligence reports heavy Zerif presence around the mining facility. They've taken human colonists hostage. Our mission is extraction and elimination." The captain's gaze swept over the assembled troops. The Zerif have established sniper nests on the surrounding cliffs. Their marksmen are cybernetically enhanced with targeting systems more advanced than most ship computers. They can hit targets at ranges exceeding 8 kilometers. Several soldiers glanced nervously at each other. Even the confident Gorvok looked troubled. "Questions?" Captain Yithnor asked. Thrumka raised a massive hand. "Captain, perhaps the humans should remain with the support team. This operation requires precision shooting at extreme range. His equipment may not be sufficient." Other soldiers murmured agreement. Marcus noticed how they avoided looking directly at him, as if his presence might somehow compromise the mission. Captain Yithnor's crystalline features seemed to shift as he considered this. Sergeant Chin's file indicates extensive sniper training and combat experience. He will deploy with Alpha Team as planned. The captain left without further discussion. The cargo bay fell into uncomfortable silence, broken only by the ship's engines and the sounds of final preparations. As the minutes ticked by, Marcus felt the weight of their doubt pressing down on him. These aliens had energy weapons that could vaporize targets, targeting computers that calculated bullet drop, and wind resistance automatically, and enhancement that made them stronger and faster than baseline humans. But they had never fought on Earth. They had never learned to make every shot count when ammunition was scarce and enemies were everywhere. They had never spent days motionless in mud and rain, waiting for the perfect moment to take a shot that would save their squad. The drop alarm sounded, red lights bathing the cargo bay in crimson. Marcus shouldered his rifle and headed for the transport pods, ignoring the whispered comments behind him. In 12 hours, he would either prove himself worthy of standing beside these galactic warriors or become another casualty in humanity's first real test among the stars. The drop pod screamed through Kepler 442b's atmosphere like falling stars. Marcus gripped his restraints as his pod shook violently, the heat shields glowing cherry red through the small viewport. Outside, he could see other pods in their formation, carrying the mixed squad of galactic soldiers toward the hostile surface below. The planet looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. Rolling hills covered in purple vegetation stretched toward jagged mountain ranges. But intelligence reports painted a different picture. Somewhere in those mountains, Zira forces had overrun a human mining colony and fortified their position with advanced defensive systems. Marcus's pod slammed into the ground with bone-jarring force. The restraints released automatically, and he grabbed his rifle before the door exploded outward. Cool alien air rushed in, carrying the scent of unfamiliar vegetation and something else, the acrid smell of burning metal. He rolled out of the pod and immediately took cover behind a fallen tree. Around him, other soldiers emerged from their pods, some with less grace. The Sithrak Veshale slithered out smoothly, her scales changing color to match the purple foliage. Thrumka's pod had created a small crater, and the massive Gorvok stood brushing dust from his armor as if he'd simply stepped out of a vehicle. Alpha Team, sound off. Captain Yithnor's voice crackled through their comm units. One by one, the 12-member team reported in. They had landed 3 kilometers from the mining facility, in a valley that should have provided cover from the Zirif sniper positions. Intelligence had been wrong about many things lately, but Marcus hoped this wasn't one of them. Movement, 2 o'clock, Zextar chittered, his compound eyes detecting something the others had missed. Through his rifle scope, Marcus saw them first. 3 Zirif soldiers moving through the tree line 800 meters away. Even at this distance, their size was impressive. 12 feet of armored reptilian muscle, moving with predatory grace despite their bulk. Their weapons gleamed with energy readings that Marcus's enhanced scope could barely register. I see them, Thrumka announced, raising his plasma rifle. Easy targets. The Gorvok fired a brilliant blue bolt that should have vaporized the lead Zirif. Instead, the energy blast struck some kind of shield barrier and dissipated harmlessly. The Zirif soldiers turned toward their position, and Marcus saw their eyes glow as targeting systems activated. Deflector shields, Captain Yithnor cursed. They're more prepared than we thought. All teams spread out, and the captain's words were cut off as return fire erupted from the Zirif position. Not just from the 3 soldiers they had seen, but from hidden positions throughout the valley. Energy blasts turned trees to vapor and carved glowing furrows in the rocky ground. It's a trap. Veshale hissed, her scales flashing warning colors as she took cover. They knew we were coming. The teams scattered, seeking whatever cover they could find in the increasingly deadly valley. Marcus pressed himself against a boulder as energy fire sizzled overhead. Through his scope, he studied the enemy positions, counting muzzle flashes and tracking movement patterns. Thrumka was pinned behind his own drop pod, cursing in his native language as he tried to line up a shot. His plasma rifle was powerful, but the Zirif shields seemed designed specifically to counter energy weapons. Each shot he fired was absorbed or deflected, while return fire grew more accurate by the second. Human, the Gorvok bellowed over the comm. Your primitive weapon cannot pierce their shields either. We need orbital bombardment. Negative, Captain Yithnor replied. Too close to the hostages. We have to break through on foot. Marcus adjusted his scope and studied the nearest Zerif soldier. The deflector shield created a faint shimmer in the air around the target, like heat distortion. He had seen similar technology during Earth's early experiments with energy barriers. They were designed to disperse high-energy attacks by spreading the impact across a wide area. But they had limitations. Marcus loaded a special round into his rifle, a tungsten core penetrator designed for piercing advanced armor. The bullet weighed almost twice as much as a standard round and moved at incredible velocity. More importantly, it was a solid projectile, not an energy beam. He took a deep breath and found his target. The lead Zerif was moving between cover positions, its massive form confident behind its protective barrier. Marcus calculated distance, wind speed, and the planet's slightly different gravity. The math was different here, but the principles remained the same. The rifle kicked against his shoulder with familiar authority. The tungsten round crossed 800 meters in less than 2 seconds, punching through the deflector shield as if it wasn't there. The kinetic energy transfer was devastating. The Zerif soldier spun and crashed into the rocky ground, its armor cracked and sparking. Sudden silence fell over the battlefield. Even the other Zerif had stopped firing, apparently stunned by what had just happened. Impossible! Thrumka breathed over the comm. The shields don't work against kinetic projectiles. Marcus finished, already acquiring his next target. They're designed to stop energy weapons. The second Zerif tried to retreat, but Marcus tracked its movements smoothly. Another shot, another kill. The massive alien dropped behind cover, but didn't rise again. Now the valley erupted in chaos as the remaining Zerif forces realized their primary defense had been compromised. Energy fire resumed with doubled intensity, but it was wild, panicked. Marcus could hear alien voices shouting in the Zerif language, probably calling for support. Alpha Team, advance by bounds, Captain Yithnor ordered. Human, maintain overwatch. Those shields are down, but they still have superior numbers and positioning. The team began moving forward, using Marcus's accurate fire to suppress enemy positions. Each time a Zerif soldier tried to establish a firing position, the human sniper would find them. His shots were surgical, precise, accounting for the alien physiology his rifle had been modified to exploit. Zextar bounded from cover to cover, his 4 arms allowing him to carry multiple weapons. The human shots are clearing our advance, he chittered excitedly. I take back what I said about primitive weapons. Vesail slithered through the purple vegetation, her natural camouflage making her nearly invisible. How does he see them from this distance? She wondered aloud. My enhanced vision can barely make out their positions. Experience, Marcus replied simply, tracking another target through his scope. The Zerif were adapting quickly, using terrain and cover more effectively. But they were still thinking in terms of energy warfare, clustering together behind barriers that would stop plasma fire. Marcus fired again, and a Zerif soldier that thought it was safely hidden behind an energy-proof wall discovered that tungsten bullets didn't respect such limitations. As Alpha Team advanced up the valley, the remaining Zerif began falling back toward the mining facility. They were maintaining discipline, conducting a fighting withdrawal that spoke of professional training and battlefield experience. But they were also afraid now. Marcus could see it in their movement patterns, the way they flinched at the crack of his rifle even when he wasn't targeting them. They had never faced an enemy that could reach out and touch them regardless of their technological advantages. Mining facility in sight, Captain Yithnor reported. Heavy fortifications. This is where it gets difficult. Marcus studied the facility through his scope. The Zerif had turned the human mining complex into a fortress. Energy barriers, automated defense turrets, and elevated sniper positions created overlapping fields of fire that would make any assault costly. High on a cliff overlooking the facility, he spotted the glint of advanced optics. The Zerif sniper teams that intelligence had warned about, 8 kilometers away, just at the edge of their maximum effective range. They were searching for him. The mining facility sprawled across the valley floor like a metallic tumor. What had once been a peaceful human outpost was now a Zerif stronghold bristling with weapons and energy barriers. Smoke rose from several buildings, and Marcus could see signs of recent combat scarring the structures. More importantly, He could see movement in the windows. Human shapes, clearly hostages being used as shields. Any direct assault would result in civilian casualties. Sniper teams confirmed on the northern ridge. Captain Yithnor reported grimly. Intel was right about their range. 8.2 kilometers, with clear sight lines across the entire approach. Marcus studied the distant cliff through his rifle scope. The magnification was pushed to its limits, but he could make out 3 separate positions. Each one housed what appeared to be a massive rifle system, probably cybernetically integrated with the Zerif operator. At this range, even his modified Barrett was operating at the absolute edge of effectiveness. Human. Thrumka's voice carried doubt despite their earlier success. Even your primitive bullets cannot reach that far accurately. The math is impossible. We need to call for orbital support, Zextar added. This is what warships are for. Captain Yithnor's crystalline form shifted through several colors, indicating deep thought. Negative. Intelligence confirms human hostages throughout the facility. Any orbital strike would kill innocents. Marcus had been running calculations in his head since first spotting the sniper positions. 8 kilometers was beyond normal engagement range, but not impossible. He had made similar shots on Earth, though never against opponents with cybernetic enhancements and targeting computers. I can reach them, he said quietly. The statement drew stares from the entire team. Veshal's scales flickered through several color patterns that Marcus's translator couldn't interpret, but her tone was clear enough. The Zerif snipers have technology that exceeds most shipboard systems. They can calculate atmospheric interference, gravity variations, even molecular wind currents. They can calculate, Marcus agreed, but can they improvise? Before anyone could ask what he meant, energy fire erupted from the ridge. 3 brilliant beams of coherent light struck the valley around Alpha Team, each shot precise enough to suggest the Zerif had already ranged them perfectly. The team scattered, seeking cover that would hide them from the elevated firing positions. They have us pinned, Captain Yithnor stated unnecessarily. Any movement toward the facility will expose us to their fire. Marcus was already moving, but not toward the facility. Instead, he began climbing toward a rocky outcrop that would give him a better angle on the sniper positions. The rest of the team watched in confusion as he abandoned the limited cover they had found. "Where are you going?" Thrumka demanded. "You're exposing yourself. They know where we are anyway," Marcus replied, settling into a prone position among the rocks. "Their targeting computers have been tracking us since we landed. But computers follow patterns." He began setting up for the longest shot of his career. The rifle bipod deployed with mechanical precision, and he adjusted his scope for the extreme range. Wind meters and atmospheric sensors built into his gear fed data to his modified targeting system. But ultimately, this would come down to human judgment and experience. The first Zerif sniper fired again, the energy beam passing close enough to Marcus that he could feel the heat through his armor. The shot had been aimed at where he should have been, based on his previous movement pattern. But Marcus had deliberately altered his rhythm, moving in a way that would confuse automated tracking. Through his scope, he could see the Zerif sniper adjusting its massive rifle. The alien was huge, even by Zerif standards, its body more machine than flesh. Cybernetic implants covered most of its skull, and its eyes glowed with the telltale signs of advanced targeting systems. Marcus fired. The tungsten round took nearly 4 seconds to cross the distance, during which the Zerif sniper continued tracking targets in the valley below. The bullet struck with tremendous force, punching through the alien's advanced armor and sending its massive form tumbling backwards. The other 2 snipers immediately shifted their attention to Marcus's position. Energy beams began striking the rocks around him with methodical precision as their targeting computers calculated his exact location. Each shot came closer than the last. Marcus rolled to a new position just as a beam vaporized the rock where he had been lying. The Zerif were good, their technology impressive, but they were fighting like machines, following programmed responses and calculated patterns. He found the second sniper in his scope just as it fired again. This time, Marcus moved before the shot was complete, rolling away from his position in a direction that violated every tactical algorithm ever written. The energy beam missed by centimeters. The second shot from his rifle was fired from an impossible position. Lying on his back, rifle braced against a rock, aiming at a target 8 kilometers away through a scope mounted at an awkward angle. By every military manual ever written, the shot should have been wild. Instead, it found its target perfectly. The second Zerif sniper spun away from its weapon, cybernetic systems sparking as the tungsten round wreaked havoc on its enhanced biology. Impossible. Someone breathed over the comm. Marcus wasn't sure who. The third sniper was more cautious, pulling back from its exposed position. But Marcus had been tracking all 3 positions since the engagement began, noting sight lines and calculating angles. He knew exactly where the Zerif would move to maintain effective fire while seeking better cover. Marcus shifted position again, this time climbing higher among the rocks. Each movement seemed random, but was actually part of a larger pattern designed to confuse automated tracking systems. Human intuition versus artificial intelligence. The third Zerif thought it had found safety behind a rocky outcrop that should have blocked any return fire. Its targeting computer probably calculated the position as completely secure from Marcus's location. But Marcus wasn't firing from where the computer thought he was. His third shot arced over 8 kilometers of alien atmosphere, following a trajectory that accounted for the planet's rotation, atmospheric density, and gravitational variations. The round struck the Zerif from an angle its cover couldn't protect against. Silence fell over the valley. For long moments, no one moved or spoke. Then, Captain Yithnor's voice crackled over the comm, colored with something that might have been awe. All 3 sniper positions neutralized. How is this possible? Marcus was already packing his gear, preparing to advance on the facility. They were fighting like computers, he explained, calculating perfect solutions to tactical problems. But perfect solutions only work when your enemy follows the rules. Thrumka's massive form emerged from cover, his plasma rifle held almost reverently. You deliberately moved in patterns that made no tactical sense. You exposed yourself to draw their fire. I moved like a human, Marcus corrected. Unpredictably, their computers couldn't track behavior that didn't follow logical patterns. Zextar's compound eyes focused on the human with new respect. The shots themselves, the distance, the precision. How did you compensate for atmospheric interference without cybernetic enhancement? Marcus shouldered his rifle and began moving toward the facility. The hardest part was still ahead. The Zerif might have lost their overwatch advantage, but they still held a fortified position filled with human hostages. Practice, he said simply. Lots of practice. As Alpha Team advanced across the valley, Marcus could hear them discussing what they had witnessed. Terms like impossible and unprecedented filtered through his comm unit. Several team members were already requesting copies of his engagement footage for analysis by their respective military commands. But Marcus was focused on the facility ahead. Through his scope, he could see Zerif soldiers repositioning inside the buildings. They knew their sniper overwatch was gone, but they still had advantages. Better weapons, superior armor, and human shields to complicate any assault. The easy part was over. Now came the real test. The mining facility's main gate hung open like a broken jaw, revealing the courtyard beyond. What should have been an inviting target was clearly a trap. Automated defense turrets tracked back and forth along preset patterns, while energy barriers created overlapping fields of deadly light. Marcus counted at least 12 Zerif soldiers visible through windows and doorways, their massive forms moving with disciplined precision. More concerning were the human shapes he could see being herded between buildings, colonists being used as mobile shields to complicate any assault. Thermal imaging confirms 47 human life signs throughout the facility, Captain Yithnor reported. Intelligence indicated 63 colonists originally. We're already 14 people behind. The weight of that statement settled over Alpha Team like a cold blanket. This wasn't just a tactical exercise anymore. Real people were dying while they planned their approach. Thrumka studied the facility through his weapons targeting system. Direct assault is suicide. Those defense turrets can track multiple targets simultaneously, and the Zerif have overlapping fields of fire. Even if we break through, they'll execute hostages before we can reach them. Stealth approach, Vesale suggested, her scales shifting to match the surrounding terrain. I could infiltrate alone, disable some systems. They have motion sensors, Zextar pointed out. Infrared, electromagnetic spectrum, probably others we don't know about. The facility is locked down tight. Marcus was studying the facility through his rifle scope, but not looking for enemies. Instead, he was examining the infrastructure, the power lines, the weapon placements. Military targets were often more fragile than they appeared if you knew where to look. "What's the power source?" he asked. Captain Yithnor consulted his tactical display. "Geothermal plant, 2 kilometers north. Fed through hardened conduits. They're probably shielded against energy weapons." "Probably," Marcus agreed. "But what about the distribution points?" He shifted his aim to a cluster of junction boxes mounted on the facility's exterior wall. The Zerif had hardened their primary systems, but basic infrastructure often got overlooked during rapid fortification. The boxes were protected by standard armor plating, nothing like the advanced barriers protecting the weapon systems. Marcus fired. The tungsten round punched through the armor plating and into the electrical systems beyond. Sparks erupted from the junction, and several sections of the facility's defensive grid flickered and died. "Interesting," Captain Yithnor mused. "But they have backup systems. Emergency power will restore those defenses in minutes." "Then we better move fast," Marcus replied, already seeking his next target. The Zerif inside the facility were reacting to the power loss, rushing to restore critical systems. Marcus could see them through windows, their cybernetic enhancements making them easy to track even in the dimmed lighting. They moved with machine-like efficiency, but that efficiency created predictable patterns. He fired again, this time through a window at a Zerif soldier attempting to restart a defense turret. The shot traveled through reinforced glass and struck the alien center mass, sending it crashing into the control systems behind it. More sparks, more darkness. "He's taking apart their entire defensive network," Vesale observed with something like admiration. "One shot at a time." But the Zerif were adapting quickly. Marcus saw movement near the hostage areas, guards positioning human shields near critical systems. The message was clear: keep shooting, and innocents would die. "They're using the colonists as living armor," Thrumka growled. "Cowards!" Marcus lowered his rifle slightly. Direct fire was no longer an option, not with human lives in the crossfire. The Zerif knew this, and their defensive posture shifted accordingly. They were counting on human moral constraints to protect them. "New plan," Marcus said, studying the facility's layout. "The Zerif think like soldiers. They're protecting critical infrastructure and using hostages to prevent direct assault. But they're not thinking like humans." "What do you mean?" Captain Yithnor asked. Marcus pointed to a series of mining tunnels that connected the facility's buildings underground. The colonists built service tunnels for equipment transport. Those tunnels connect to the main processing plant, the administration building, and the living quarters. The Zerif probably know about them, but they're not designed for 12-foot-tall soldiers. "You want to go underground?" Sextar shitted nervously. "In confined spaces with limited visibility? That negates most of our technological advantages." "That's the point," Marcus replied. "Underground, their cybernetic enhancements don't help much. No long sight lines for their targeting computers. No room to maneuver their heavy weapons. And human-sized tunnels built for human-sized workers." Captain Yithnor's crystalline features shifted through several colors as he processed the idea. Tunnel fighting is dangerous. Close quarters, limited escape routes. If they detect us, then we better not get detected, Marcus said, shouldering his rifle. "But first, I need to give them something else to think about." He resumed firing, this time targeting non-critical systems around the facility's perimeter. Lighting arrays, communication dishes, sensor arrays, nothing that would harm hostages, but enough to keep the Zerif focused on external threats rather than internal security. While the aliens rushed to respond to his harassment fire, Alpha Team moved to the tunnel entrance Marcus had spotted. The access hatch was hidden beneath overgrown vegetation, apparently unused since the Zerif occupation began. The tunnel beyond was cramped and dark, barely wide enough for a human to move comfortably. For the larger alien team members, it would be a nightmare. But Marcus had fought in worse conditions. "I'll take point," he volunteered. "If we encounter resistance, I can engage at close range while the rest of you provide support." "With that rifle," Krumka Albiet said. "In close quarters, you need rapid-fire weapons, not precision shooting." Marcus pulled a sidearm from his thigh holster, a modified pistol that looked almost primitive compared to the energy weapons around him. But, like his rifle, it fired solid projectiles that could punch through advanced armor without regard for energy shields. "Trust me," he said, and disappeared into the tunnel. The underground passages were a maze of service corridors, maintenance shafts, and equipment storage areas. Marcus moved through them with careful precision, using techniques learned in urban warfare environments across a dozen different conflicts. Every corner could hide an enemy. Every shadow might conceal a trap. Behind him, Alpha Team followed as quietly as their diverse physiologies allowed. Vesel's serpentine form was actually better suited to the tunnels than most, while Thrumka's massive frame scraped against walls and ceiling with every movement. They reached the administration building without contact, emerging through a floor access panel into a storage room filled with mining equipment. Through the walls, Marcus could hear Zerif voices and the sound of heavy footsteps. The aliens were still reacting to his external harassment, unaware that the real threat was already inside their perimeter. "Hostages are being held in the main conference room," Captain Yithnor whispered, consulting building schematics on his tactical display. 23 humans, guarded by 6 Zerif soldiers. Marcus studied the layout, noting sight lines, cover positions, and potential crossfire zones. The conference room was large and open, giving the guards clear views of all entrances. Any conventional assault would result in hostage casualties. But the room had one weakness the Zerif probably hadn't considered. Like most human buildings, it was designed with standard height ceilings and fixtures. The 12-foot-tall aliens would be operating in a space built for 8-foot clearances. "I have an idea," Marcus said, "but you're not going to like it." Marcus crouched in the ceiling access space above the conference room, his rifle aimed down through a ventilation grate. Below him, 23 human colonists sat huddled together in the center of the room, their faces showing the strain of hours in captivity. 6 Zerif guards surrounded them, each standing nearly 12 feet tall, their cybernetic enhancements gleaming in the artificial light. The aliens were positioned perfectly to prevent any ground-level assault. Overlapping fields of fire, clear sight lines to all entrances, and hostages positioned as human shields. It was textbook defensive positioning. But they had made one crucial error. Like most species that had evolved in low-gravity environments, the Zerif rarely looked up. Marcus had spent the last 10 minutes studying each guard's movement pattern, timing their patrol routes, and calculating the precise sequence needed for what he was about to attempt. It was impossible by any reasonable standard. 6 targets, all of them cybernetically enhanced soldiers with reflexes faster than baseline human norms, in a confined space with innocent lives at stake. But Marcus had stopped worrying about what was reasonable a long time ago. The first guard died before the others realized they were under attack. Marcus's shot punched down through the ventilation grate and struck the alien's head with surgical precision. The massive form toppled backwards, crashing into a wall with bone-shaking force. The second guard turned toward the sound, cybernetic eyes already tracking upward toward the ceiling. But Marcus had anticipated this reaction, shifting position the instant after his first shot. The Zerif's return fire vaporized empty ceiling tiles while Marcus lined up his second target from a completely different angle. 2 down. The remaining guards were shouting in their harsh language, weapons swinging wildly as they tried to locate the threat. The hostages pressed themselves flat against the floor, some screaming, others frozen in terror. Marcus's next shot took the third guard's center mass as it tried to coordinate with its fellows. 3 down. The fourth guard had found Marcus's position, its weapon charging for a shot that would probably bring down half the ceiling. But the alien had committed a fatal error. It had positioned itself directly beneath another ventilation grate. Marcus dropped through the opening like a stone, landing on the creature's shoulders with his full weight behind his combat knife. 4 down. The fifth guard spun toward the commotion, but Marcus was already moving. He rolled away from his knife kill, pistol in hand, and put 3 rapid-shot center mass into the turning alien. The tungsten bullets punched through its armor as if it were made of paper. 5 down. The sixth and final guard had managed to grab a human hostage, a young woman who worked in the facility's communications department. The Zerif held her in front of its body like a shield, weapon pressed to her head, cybernetic eyes locked on Marcus with obvious intelligence. Human soldier. The alien spoke in accented galactic standard, its voice a rumbling growl. Lower your weapon, or the female dies. Marcus lowered his pistol slowly, hands visible, while his mind raced through calculations. Distance to target, angle of approach, hostage position relative to the guard's weapon. The math was ugly. Any shot that could neutralize the Xerif would likely pass through the hostage as well. You fight well for a primitive species, the guard continued. But you cannot win this exchange. My weapon will kill her before your bullet reaches me. The alien was probably right. Its cybernetic reflexes would register Marcus's movement and trigger a kill shot before he could complete his draw. In a contest of pure speed, enhanced biology would always defeat baseline human reflexes. But Marcus wasn't planning to outdraw the alien. You're right, he said, holstering his pistol completely. I can't beat your reaction time. The Xerif's eyes narrowed in confusion. This wasn't following any tactical pattern its combat programming had prepared it for. Marcus continued talking, his voice calm and conversational. Your cybernetics are impressive. Response time probably measured in microseconds. But they're still just computers, aren't they? What is your point, human? Computers process information linearly. Input, calculation, output. They follow predictable patterns. Marcus took a small step sideways, hands still raised. But they don't handle paradoxes well. The guard's weapon tracked Marcus's movement automatically, but its grip on the hostage remained secure. Perfect positioning, perfect tactical awareness. Exactly what Marcus was counting on. Here's your paradox, Marcus said, and suddenly dove not toward the guard, but away from it, throwing himself behind an overturned table. The Xerif's combat systems reacted instantly, swinging its weapon toward Marcus's new position. But in that same instant, the young woman it had been holding as a shield drove her elbow back into the alien's midsection with desperate force. The blow wouldn't have done any real damage to the heavily armored creature, but it created a moment of imbalance, a fraction of a second where the guard's attention was split between its hostage and its primary target. Marcus's shot came not from behind the table where the alien expected, but from its left side where he had rolled during his apparent retreat. The angle was perfect, a clean line to the guard's head that wouldn't endanger the hostage. The tungsten round struck with devastating effect. The final Xerif crashed to the floor, its weapon clattering harmlessly away from the trembling woman. Silence fell over the conference room. 23 human colonists stared at Marcus as if he had materialized from thin air. 6 Xerif soldiers lay dead around them, victims of what should have been an impossible assault. Alpha Team burst through the main entrance, weapons ready, only to find the battle already over. Captain Yithnor's crystalline features shifted through several colors that Marcus was learning indicated extreme surprise. All hostiles neutralized, Marcus reported simply. Hostages secure. Thrumka's massive form filled the doorway as he surveyed the room. 6 dead Xerif, including several killed at close range in confined quarters. The Gorvok's 4 eyes focused on Marcus with something approaching reverence. Ow, he rumbled. 6 enhanced soldiers, cybernetic reflexes, superior positioning. The mathematics of this engagement were impossible. Marcus was already helping hostages to their feet, checking for injuries, coordinating their evacuation with the rest of Alpha Team. Just another mission completing successfully. They fought like machines, he explained, the same answer he had given before. Calculated responses, optimal positioning, perfect tactical awareness. But perfect isn't always better. Veshale slithered closer, her scales showing patterns of confusion and respect. Your species continues to surprise us, human. We mock your primitive technology, your basic biology, your lack of enhancement. Yet here we stand in a room full of dead Xerif who should have been superior in every measurable way. Marcus shouldered his rifle and headed for the exit. Outside, he could hear the sounds of Galactic Coalition transport ships arriving to evacuate the colonists. The mission was complete, the facility secured, the hostages safe. We're not superior, he said, pausing at the doorway. We're just unpredictable. Sometimes that's enough. As Alpha Team escorted the freed colonists to the landing zone, Marcus could hear his alien teammates discussing the engagement in voices filled with new respect. Terms like impossible marksmanship and unprecedented tactical flexibility filtered through the comm chatter. Word would spread through the Galactic Defense Coalition about the human sniper who had taken down Zero snipers at 8 kilometers, infiltrated a fortified position, and single-handedly rescued 23 hostages from cybernetically enhanced guards. Some species would demand to study human training methods. Others would want to understand how baseline biology could compete with enhanced reflexes and targeting computers. Military academies would analyze the footage for decades. But Marcus wasn't thinking about any of that as the transport ships lifted off from Kepler 442b. He was thinking about the next mission, the next impossible shot, the next time someone would underestimate what a human with a rifle could accomplish. In a vast galaxy filled with energy weapons and cybernetic enhancement, sometimes the most dangerous thing was still a human who knew where to put a bullet. And Marcus Chin knew exactly where to put every single one.